Hey guys, welcome back to Sports with Mono and Mono. My partner Steve is back with us in our studio. So,
See. Hello, everybody.
and I'm sure we'll get an update of Steve's events from last weekend, and we'll talk about that. We got a lot to talk about. Today's July 2nd, right? 2 days before our country's birthday, and we wish everybody a happy 4th of July.
You better believe it.
Yeah. So, welcome back, and obviously, our monologue, and Steve, you had the monologue this week, sponsored by Coriano Trucking of Summerhill, New York.
Well, I had a lot of topics to choose from during the week. Gave it a lot of thought. However, at work yesterday, I got myself a nice little Dagwood sandwich for lunch
Familiar with them?
and turned on YouTube real quickly. And what pops up on my right screen is, you see all these YouTube videos and stuff. Those 18 minutes of the New York Rangers, New Jersey Devils, 1994 playoff, right? Or the Rangers run, if you will. But specifically about the Messier guarantee. Okay, now I haven't seen it in a couple years, maybe something along those lines. And I turned this thing on, and let me tell you something. I'm a 57-year-old man, and watching this, I'm looking around. I'm making sure that nobody can see me, and I am full of emotion to this day. I started weeping, like salty discharge was coming out of my eyes. It was so fantastic. Just want to remind the audience because the Stanley Cup just ended. The Colorado Avalanche, obviously, hoisting Lord Stanley. But the story of that, and you and I remember it like it was yesterday. The New York Post, the New York Daily News, will win tonight was the headline.
We will win tonight.
So now the interview's going on with Messier, and then they can reflect Brian Leach and so on and so forth. And Brian Leach says, I get, morning I look at the paper and I'm like, oh boy, And Messier was like, boy, I really put my foot, foot in my mouth. No, But Mark Messier, what it reinforces is, to me, it's no debate. There's no debate who the greatest team leader in all four sports is for me is Mark Messier. So then I just want to fast forward to the highlights of the game. The Devils go up 2-0, right? And they are in control of the series and 54 years and the curse and so on and so forth. Kovalev scores a goal, second period to make it 2-1. And then this is where the legend of Mark Messier kicks in, right? Who scores that first goal down the right side of the net, and he backhands it over Brodeur, raises his hands, and and then he does it again. And oh my God, I was sitting there as if I'm watching it live. Fast forward, it was just the greatest individual. I don't know, one of the greatest individual performances in any of the sports I've ever seen. Fast forward, the Rangers win the Stanley Cup. So I just wanted to remind the audience, okay, whoever your favorite hockey team is, basketball team, NFL team, whatever, baseball. Mark Messier, to me, is just I revere this man. And that's it. I wanted to just little revisionist history.
And Steve, from a monologue perspective, I remember you and I watching the finals, and it was a culmination of that, but it wouldn't have gotten there without Messier against the Devils. And
we don't have Matteau without Messier.
Exactly.
Coming through.
And we don't have a cup without Messier.
And then real quick, Mike Keenan is interviewed, for about 5 seconds. And his stoic Mike Keenan said that was the greatest performance I've ever seen by him,
Yeah.
It was just great.
And not just because we're brothers and partners. I always have said that from a team leader perspective, Mark Messier is second to none.
And I just want to finish real quick. So they get to mid-season, Mike Keenan goes into Neil Smith's office and says, "Oh, we're a great team. We're good. But we're not going to win the Stanley Cup as the roster is constituted at that point." And Neil Smith, to his credit, listened to Mike Keenan, makes the trade, gets Glenn Anderson from
Edmonton.
No, Toronto at the time.
Oh, okay.
Okay, they get McTavish, and then they pull the trade of saving Tony Amonte and a couple picks, and they get Stephon Matteau and Brian Noonan, and those were the
From the Blackhawks, right?
from the Blackhawks, and those moves are
Missing
God,
piece. The missing piece.
They kind of get lost in the shuffle, but you got to give Neil Smith credit for
Yep.
That roster.
And while we're talking about this, and you touched on it, the Stanley Cup. The Colorado Avalanche won the Stanley Cup this week, and I got to give credit to these guys, man. They were flying. They actually swept 2 series, and then they win the Stanley Cup against. You just can't emphasize enough how difficult it is to win the Stanley Cup, and they're going against the 2-time defending champs, and they're just loaded. Stamkos was on fire, and I got to give them credit. I'm happy for guys like Nathan McKinnon, right? We talked about this on the show last year, how devastated he was that they didn't get to the Stanley Cup. And but this year they really did. And this guy, Cale Makar, Makar is what a stud. He's only like 23 years old. I mean, you got to talk about Adam Fox and him as the 2 best up-and-coming defensemen in the league. But what a great run for those guys. And you know who I'm happy for too? Joe Sakic, because he was the captain of the team when they last won the Stanley Cup 20 years ago, and he's the architect of this team. Put it together, built it, and couldn't be happier for him.
I was going to say that. So that's encouragement too for our New York Ranger fans that Joe Sakic and Chris Drury have the same type of championship pedigree.
Yes,
and the fact that Drury is now running the Rangers, that gives me encouragement. And again, Colorado last 3 years lost in the first round, as talented as they are. So we need to be a little patient. But I just wanted to make that comparison that Joe Sakic, to me, Joe Sakic, Chris Drury are kind of eerily similar.
Yeah. And they, it was kind of funny, the little blooper forever. The guy skates over with the Stanley Cup and bangs it on the ice. It's all bent out of shape. I go, what is that? It looks like it's made out of a beer can, for God's sakes.
Nothing compared to what Ovechkin did with it.
He's still drinking out of it. But also, while we're on hockey, so Ed, first of all, congratulations to the Colorado Avalanche and Sakic and company. I think it was great. That's who I picked to win the cup in the finals. But Tampa Bay, let's not throw dirt on them just now, because they'll be right back.
Not at all.
So there were a couple of guys from the Hall of Fame, and I wanted to run this by you, Steve, because like guys like Daniel Alfredson got in. I thought he was great. Roberto Luonga, he got in. He was great.
Yeah.
Like third all time in wins, which is surprising to me. He was kind of under the radar for a long
played
time.
20 years.
But there were 2 brothers, the Sedin brothers. And you know what? I was sitting there going, yeah, I think I remember them. But, they played on the West Coast. So in the East Coast, we don't see a lot of West Coast hockey. But one of them, what was it? Henrik was the MVP in 2010. So these guys got in the Hall of Fame. And
sure.
Daniel and Henrik.
That is correct.
The brothers.
Absolutely.
Right?
Well deserved.
Yep.
Outstanding hockey players.
They were.
Yeah.
Swedes, I think.
Sweden? From Sweden?
Yeah. But anyway, so, that's our hockey take this week. And so, listen, these guys don't get any rest. The season starts in like October. So these guys get like 2 months off. And they'll be right back banging and scratching and clawing for the Stanley Cup. And that's a big win for them.
Yeah.
So Steve, we gotta move on to this NBA. And
I'll be back in about 20 minutes.
Okay, because I don't know that I could shut up for 20 minutes. So
lot going on.
Right. I mean, this whole free agency thing, and our producer Rob said, let's not do any Nets bashing here, but you have to do something, and you have to talk about this, right? The opting in at $37 million for a guy that's played less than half of games for the franchise that's paying him that kind of money. So he gets he gets a free pass. He gets 37 million just to sign his name. And now Kevin Durant, and listen, I think the world of Kevin Durant. I think he's a great, great basketball player. But I'm just going crazy over this thing with the NBA that just says, I don't want to play here anymore. So now you have to trade me. After signing a super max contract, right? 45, whatever $1 million a year. You can't do that. I just don't understand how this is able to happen. Forcing your employer to trade you because you're not happy with the environment. And I look at it this way. Here's the environment. You and Kyrie had a deal. You were out one night and said, listen, we could win an NBA championship, right? With me, you, and Harden, we can't be beat. And then we know how it panned out with Harden, so he got thrown out. And now Kevin Durant saying, I can't count on you. You making me look bad. And you didn't come close to winning an NBA championship, and that's gonna go out the window. But the money that these guys are making is insane. Right? Am I wrong? Or 45 million, right? John Wall hasn't played in 2 years and he gets the option to make $47 million. It's insane. Where is this money coming from in the NBA?
It's a nice gig if you can get it. There's no question about it.
Oh my goodness.
But back to Kevin Durant. I mean, Kevin Durant, nobody saw him coming to Brooklyn, okay? First of all, right? Kevin Durant is the best offensive basketball player still on the planet for a finite amount of more time.
Right.
Kyrie Irving, we've been over this 1,000 times. 3 teams, malcontent, me. But what's the one caveat about Kyrie Irving that we all agree?
He's really good.
This guy is a super, super talented basketball player. However, Kyrie's options were limited. There was talk of the Lakers trying to get him, but really Kyrie's going to go there for $6 million. I don't think so. So his only option is to come back to really Brooklyn, if you will. And now Kevin Durant, to his credit, I applaud him actually for saying, okay, Kyrie signs his opt-in, and then he drops the bomb and says, I'm out of here. And we talked before the show with Rob and the 3 of us. The precedents have already been set. So I still don't understand how you're
Doesn't make it right.
incredulous over how this can transpire. Kevin Durant's getting traded. Make no mistake about it. He's probably going to go to Miami or Phoenix or whatever. But I don't give it much thought anymore. I don't even care. I don't care that they're making $50 million. You know why? Because I'm not contributing one dime to it.
That's how I feel too.
That's it.
Yeah. But I mean, it's just amazing that this whole NBA and this free agency started. Here's something that happened yesterday. Rudy Gobert was traded to the Timberwolves for 4 number 1. I mean, is Rudy Gobert this kind of a player?
Rudy Gobert is a really good player.
4 number 1 draft picks? That's insane.
But the capital of having a number 1 draft, like you get 4 in the NBA, is nowhere near what it equates to in the NFL, right? Which is really, when we think draft, right? Draft capital, right? I mean, that's a value, right? Like beyond. So the Knicks have 11 first round draft picks over the next 7 years. Big deal.
Yeah, but there's always like 7 or 8 marquee kids that could be impact players.
My point being about the NBA draft, I couldn't name, top of my head, 5 coming into the draft. Who the hell they are, where they're from, what country they're from, a one and done from a college, come from high school. I couldn't name them.
I got it.
Okay, so to me, you want 4 number 1 draft picks? Here you go. You give me an established star like Rudy Gobert, I'm pulling the trigger on it immediately.
But Steve, I gotta say, Rudy Gobert. I mean, I don't.
Look
when you
at
talk
his
about
numbers, the guy is.
But when you talk about the top 10 players in this league, I don't have Rudy Gobert on that list. Not even close.
Well, you should check the numbers. When he's healthy, this guy is This guy can
All right.
a rebounding machine, scores big,
All right.
right?
But here's my another interesting thing, with this NBA, and again, where all this money, and you're right, I don't contribute to it at all. But Zion Williamson hasn't played 10 minutes in this league, and they just gave him a super max contract. I mean, they're paying $50 million for this guy. Where is the money coming from?
We've talked about it. The NBA is an international phenomenon. China loves the NBA. The TV, the streaming, all this stuff.
I just got a
And
problem
again,
with
Jim, if they're paying this kind of ridiculous money, they have it.
I guess, but
Yeah.
I just find it to be so absurd that I just can't reconcile that these guys are making, James Harden declines a $47 million option. Why did he decline it? Because they're going to give him a super max contract and he's going to make 50 million guaranteed for 4 years. And I just find it absurd.
Right.
I do.
Right. I find it offensive. Don't get me wrong. But real quick on the New York Knicks, they're still the New York Knicks. Jalen Brunson is a nice player. He really is.
Yeah.
But this is what, with all the splash going on and all the money and the Kevin Durant names and Rudy Gobert and even the Celtics just pulled off a great trade, getting Malcolm Brogdon from Indiana. Brad Stevens is a sharp guy, and he knows they lost, they lost in the finals because they didn't have an established point guard like Brogdon. And what did Boston give up? Nothing. 5 players, this, that, and the other thing. Big deal.
Yeah.
But back to the Knicks. Jalen Brunson's a nice player, but they're the New York Knicks, the media capital of the world. And guess what? We signed Jalen Brunson, 4 years, 110 million. That is the big splash.
Oh.
So
I just can't believe it. And you and I have talked about it, and you made this point about these quarterbacks in the NFL, and they're getting 40 million a year, and you said because that's what the market is dictating, and you're absolutely right. But the NBA, I just think, is so out of control that I just can't. And I told you, I watched more NBA this year than I have in the past 20 years. And you and I grew up, and we watched the NBA religiously. It's just a different game, and I just can't reconcile these guys making that kind of money every single year. Anyway,
again, it doesn't bother me because I don't care.
Well.
To be frank.
All right. So let's move on to the NFL, and of course, we're still dealing with this Deshaun Watson, debacle, if you will, because I think it's just a travesty what's going on with this. And if I was a Cleveland Browns fan, I'd be so upset, and I would sell my season tickets in 5 seconds. But he's going to get suspended, and I think it's going to be a year. But now look what this franchise has done. They took their starting quarterback. They said, they're due to pay him $18 million, and Deshaun Watson's not going to be on the field this season. And now they don't have a quarterback. I mean, what were they thinking when this was all going down is amazing. Why would you take your franchise and take this burden on Deshaun Watson? You and I have talked about it 1,000 times. I just find it amazing that this has gone on like this. And if I'm a Cleveland Browns fan, I'm not happy.
What I find amazing, and I've said it, is to guarantee $230 million.
Yeah, it's amazing.
To guarantee it. And we all know the NFL is a league where, you get your signing bonus, right? And basically, you're not getting, 20 million a year or something. You get all that up front.
Right.
Cleveland's looking at it long term. Deshaun Watson is still in his mid-20s. Okay, is he going to get suspended? You bet your ass he's getting suspended, and well deserved.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, I think Deshaun Watson. This is a pretty disturbing story.
And it's not that he's not a great athlete. He's very athletic, but I just don't. You're right.
But you want this guy to be the face of your franchise.
That's the key,
right?
Yep.
Okay. Right.
A disaster for the Cleveland Browns.
Right. And I'll tell you this right now. If my son who's 16, hypothetically, we lived in Cleveland and he's 5 and he's 6 years old, and hey, Dad, can you get me a Deshaun Watson jersey? I tell him I'm not.
No,
You can wear any other number, but you're not wearing number 4.
I know.
And I will, he'd be too young to kind of explain it to him. But this dad is going to say, you are not wearing number 4.
Right. You're right. But
I don't care that Timmy and Johnny have the short jerseys and I want one.
Yeah.
You're not wearing it.
it's a role model thing. This isn't a role model that you would walk around proudly wearing his football jersey. That's the whole point here.
And if or anybody in the audience disagrees, we'd love to hear from you. This is the perfect time to chime in or send us an email at sportsmano@gmail.com.
Yep. So one other note from the NFL, Kenny Pickett, last of the first round draft choices, signs with Pittsburgh. And I think it's going to work out for him. I really like him. And, like I said, there was a lot of talk about who were the best quarterbacks. There were a whole bunch of them. And, but Mike Tomlin said, this is our guy. And I love the choice. I mean, yeah, he's going to probably start Trubisky in the beginning of the season, I would assume, from experience perspective. But I like Kenny Pickett, and he's the last first rounder to sign. So
yeah. I'm just curious if Kenny's hands have grown.
Yeah, I know. The little baby hands, right? Really? Baby hands? But anyway, so the NFL, and we'll get back to the NFL when stuff happens. But I just, like I said, you can't get away from this Watson thing, and it's too much. It's too much for me.
Well, the NFL it's July 2nd, so
coming. Training camp's probably what, 2 weeks away, 3 weeks away? Huh?
It's here, basically.
Yeah, basically here. So let's move on to Major League Baseball, and we talk about it time and time again because they're playing the best baseball in the league, the New York Yankees. I mean, they just keep on winning. They beat the teams that they're supposed to beat, and they win series after series. Yeah, they just keep coming up big. And again, it's amazing to me. I know that the pitching has been great, but these guys aren't hitting. They're all hitting 230, 240. That's it. Besides Judge but they're hitting the home runs, and that's what's winning. And what a year he's having.
No
Aaron
question.
Judge.
But where would the Yankees really be without the contribution of Joey Gallo, right? Batting in the 160s. Joey coming off another 0 for 24 stretch.
It's unwatchable.
Listen, it really is. And I'm not kidding anymore here. Joey Gallo is the worst hitter to ever, in my opinion, don the pinstripes. Okay? It is so unbearable to watch, number one. Number two, the Yankees can pay me at a discount, and I will don pinstripes and get up there 4 times every game and strike out. Okay, I'm just offering that to Brian Cashman. Okay, at a much discounted than Joey Gallo. He's got to go, but then the flip side is, well, who the hell's going to take him?
Well, guys, hold on. Guys, hold on. I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Would you rather trade a pretty decent prospect for like a Benintendi, or do you want to hope and pray that Brett Gardner is keeping in shape somewhere?
Please, you keep bringing this Brett Gardner guy up. I mean, where are you going with this? He's done.
That's better than Joey Gallo right now.
But
gotta be.
No, but to Steve's point, would he be an improvement over Joey Gallo? Of course, anybody would be an improvement. But when they traded for him, I said this right up front. I go 206 lifetime hitter. Now his lifetime batting average is going to drop to at least 201 or something like that. The Mendoza line. That's where this guy is, and it's intolerable to watch. And they're winning in spite of him.
Who do you want? Who do you want to get? Who would your preferred?
I would put Miguel Andujar in there, who's shown that.
Oh no! I agree.
That's all. Anybody.
Even Florio,
Well, you're gonna have to decide whether this kid is going to be the future. And yeah, he's been struggling at his time in the major leagues, but give him a chance because he's going to hit better than 165. I can tell you that. I don't care whether he's a young rookie or not.
And again, I was on record when they made the trade. I said, fine, I'll take him. right? I did not see enough of Joey Gallo to even imagine how bad this is. Like it's stunning.
It is.
And it's every single Yankee fan that you talk to that sees the same thing that I see, that you see, that he sees, that she sees.
Yeah.
It's unbearable. And you know what? It's best for Joey Gallo. New York is not for him.
Yeah,
Okay?
but what? There's no trade value for a guy like this.
I don't care.
A bag of baseball.
Exactly. I don't care.
Give Andujar a chance. That's all my thing. And listen, while we're on baseball, I neglected to bring this up in the beginning of the show, but happy Bobby Bonilla Day was yesterday.
Absolutely.
And to our fans out there, I'm sure you know what that means. This guy, you got to give his agent all the credit in the world, and because he cut a deal that is just unbelievable. Every year on July 1st, they got to pay this guy what, $1 million, $1.5 million,
Nice.
going on and on. For this has been what, 15 years now, and there's still 13 years to go on Bobby Bonilla Day.
Right. And again, for the audience, who owned the New York Mets? It was the Wilpons.
It was the Wilpons.
Where was the Wilpons' money? What funds were the Wilpons?
The Bernie Madoff
a lot of
fund.
money. Okay, so when the agent, you give him credit, talks to Bobby Bonilla, and says,
Agent of the career.
he said, "Listen, the Mets are in a financial bind. The Wilpons, can't really afford to pay like the salary at the time, Bobby Bonilla, up front." So the agent said, "What? You want to defer this for 30 years or 25 years?" And the agent goes to Bobby Bonilla, "Hey, dude, when you're 36, you walk to the mailbox once a year, and the Publishers Clearinghouse check will be coming from the New York Mets."
Wow.
And if I'm Bobby Bonilla, I'm all over it.
And if I'm a Major League Baseball player, I want his agent. I want that agent. I don't know who he was, but he deserves a piece of that $1.5 million because he cut the deal of a lifetime for his client.
Well, I want to stay on the agent real quick. So the Freddie Freeman story was a pretty big story this week.
Yeah.
He came back to Atlanta, okay, and he got very emotional. But it turns out, it seems like it's very credible, that Casey Close, who was the agent for Freddie Freeman, who I believe was Derek Jeter's agent.
Okay.
If I'm not
I
mistaken.
didn't know that. Yeah.
Right? But the word on the street is that Atlanta, that Casey Close did not let Freddie Freeman know that Atlanta way up their offer. Okay. And that's why Freddie Freeman left for LA, because he, his agent he trusted said, this is the best deal, and so on and so forth.
Wow.
So this story is kind of hot off the presses. But if this turns out to be true, shame on this guy. And this guy, wasn't looking out for Freddie Freeman.
Yeah.
And this story is not over. So I just wanted to bring that up. That Freddie Freeman, for all intents and purposes, if he was aware that the Braves wanted him,
he would have signed on the line in 2 seconds.
The Matt Olson trade doesn't happen, and this, that, and the other. So we'll see how this pans out.
And he's a classy guy, and you're right. His little return back to Atlanta with the Dodgers was very emotional and very sincere. He actually loved playing for that franchise. And you're right, this is an ugly situation if it comes down that that's the case.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then speaking of the Atlanta Braves, the New York Mets, right? Atlanta is chopping at their heels. They've turned up the Jets. They're only 3 or 2 back now, and they're playing great baseball, and they're the defending World Series champions.
Yep.
The Mets haven't been hitting of late. It's understandable. You go through slumps. Every team will. The Yankees are going to go through probably a 5-6 game losing streak at some point.
Inevitable.
It's just inevitable.
Yep.
But the Mets, they got time to the trading deadline. Make no mistake, the Mets will fine tune their roster. But Atlanta, do not discount Atlanta being there at the end.
Yeah. And there was another interesting thing. with Bryce Harper and Blake Snell, and they're actually like really good buddies. And he got tagged with that high and tight, breaks his fingers, so he's out for 6 weeks.
He's out for long.
Yeah, I mean this is the Phillies. They just keep, they keep stepping on the rake and it hits them in the face, kind of thing, But it was, Harper was so upset at this, and then he realized, I know you didn't throw at me and stuff, but that's baseball. And what happened with the Seattle Mariners and the California Angels, right? A beanball war in effect, right? And this was, and I saw the brawl, right? It's not like an NBA brawl where they throw punches while they're backing up, that kind of thing. It was some haymakers, and it reminded me of the last baseball brawl that I thought was unbelievable was when Bill Madlock was in there. Remember that? He was kicking the crap out of somebody. I mean, this was a violent brawl. And this was, a lot of guys got suspended for this, and it's not over. They got to play each other 11 more times during the season. So it's not the last time. And you and I have always talked about it, Steve, that, throwing inside is part of the game, right? And, hitting retribution, it's kind of part of the game.
Correct.
But this time it escalated to a different level.
Well, my favorite brawl of all time is the Red Sox Yankees. I want to say it was '76 when Lou Piniella slid into home plate. Fisk was the catcher,
Yeah.
and this melee broke out, and Spaceman Bill Lee got caught up in this, and he got his ass kicked, and separated his shoulder and everything. I mean, look that one up. Lou Piniella and Fisk.
Yeah, was that 76,
I want to say it was
77?
probably
something like that?
76.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good one too.
That was a good one.
But just sticking with the Angels for one quick second. I mean, obviously they don't have anything outside of Trout and Ohtani, but this guy Ohtani is having this kind of an MVP year. So this is going to be a tight race with him. He's hitting and he's throwing shutout innings. I mean, it's kind of fascinating. I don't know how long he can continue to do this because I think it's a wear and tear that's going to eventually catch up to him. But we got a horse race for the MVP coming up. And listen, if Judge continues on this pace, I don't think there's any way they could deny him. But if he goes into some kind of a slump or the Yankees decide to arrest him or whatever, it's going to be a horse race.
I think Judge, if he stays healthy, clearly will probably win the MVP.
Mm-hmm.
Is he going to break 61? Maybe. But he'll finish with, I think, a minimum. If he keeps it up, 55 homers, he'll probably have 120 RBIs. He'll bat over 300.
Yeah.
And Aaron Judge, again, if he stays healthy, is on pace.
Well, listen, I think the four best teams. This is a 4-horse race, right? This is the Houston Astros, the Yankees, the Mets, and the Atlanta Braves. I mean, so one of those 4 teams I could see winning the World Series. I don't think there's anybody. Yeah, well, the Dodgers.
I still think the Dodgers are.
You're right. I should have said 5. You're right. I mean, they're a quality franchise. They got great players, no doubt.
Michael Garvey, I disagree. Ohtani, I get it. I fully understand the argument there, but I just think if Judge continues the way he's going, I'm leaning towards him.
Yeah,
and I'm not trying to be a homer here. I'm just trying to be objective.
Right. And we thank Mike for his input, and that leads us to, because Mike is one of our loyal listeners who's a big tennis fan, and we got Wimbledon.
Well, Mike's probably having lunch with Riles right now, talking about how we acquired Kevin Durant.
Yeah, right. But let's go to the All England Tennis Club. It's Wimbledon, and I got to tell you, I watched the match with Serena Williams versus Harmony Tan, and I got to give her credit. You could see she was running out of gas, but she fought all the way. I really give her a lot of credit. It was a great match. And listen, she's 40 years old, and she's going to play in the U.S. Open, I'm sure of it. But that was a surprise. But I really admired her fortitude and hung in there. It was really good to see. And we've talked about her before. She's the most dominant female tennis player of all time. But this is 40 years old, and she was facing a young kid, and she gave it her all, and she got knocked out. But on the men's side, look who we have. I gotta say, I don't see this Djokovic. He's so hell bent on catching Nadal. I mean, he seems unbeatable to me. So we're looking at potentially, on the men's side, they're going to come up against each other at some point. But don't discount Nadal, of course. Everybody's been kind of signing him off for the past year and a half.
Djokovic is.
He seems unbeatable.
He's gonna win.
He really does. And listen, on the men's side, Steve, there's a lot of guys. These, Tsitsipas and all these young guns. Medvedev's not in because of the whole Russian thing, which I thought was wrong. But
I got no issue.
I gotta tell you that Wimbledon is great. You get to watch a match, right? At 8:00 in the morning, and it's awesome. And I know Mike watches it religiously. And on the women's side, this Iga Swiatek doesn't seem like she could be beat. He's won 37 matches in a row, or 38, something like that.
That's pretty good.
She's pretty dominant on that time. And we were just watching this morning before we came on the show, and I think this kid's going to be a superstar. She lost today, Coco Gauff. I really like this kid. She's probably all of 18 by now, but she's an up and coming star on the women's side.
But I think the earlier they start, like Coco Gauff, I don't see her playing tennis till 34, 35, 36, something along those lines. They burn out quick. Like I can see, a 10-year career, so it's gonna be done by 28, which is fine.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? It's like, I'm just saying, when these girls start real young, Jenna or Rinaldi, right?
Capriati.
Excuse me, Jennifer Capriati was the perfect example of, a couple decades ago. It was just too much for her.
Yeah. But listen, tennis is awesome, and we got the U.S. Open coming up after Wimbledon. So if you're not a tennis fan, I would suggest that you watch it because it's really, really exciting.
Yeah, this is a perfect match for Wimbledon. Like Mike is saying, Tsitsipas versus Kyrgios.
I know Mike likes Kyrgios, and I think this guy is just for a guy that hasn't won anything. He's got a big mouth, and he's got a temper. At least McEnroe won. He backed his stuff up. This guy hasn't won anything yet.
Yeah.
But Wimbledon's getting down to the stretch run, right? We're through 3 rounds now, and I guess you got to win 6 to get there. So,
Correct.
Enjoy it.
Yeah.
So let's move on, Steve, to our random points of interest. Of course, sponsored by Coriano Trucking. Lynch Toyota, Manchester, Connecticut. And I got some good feedback from Mike on the show a couple of weeks ago, and we wish him and his family a happy 4th of July as well.
Yes, we do.
So here's my first random points, and I actually talked about this with our brother Christopher last week. There's an E60 thing it's called Unrivaled. I don't know if you've seen it yet. It was on the rivalry between the Red Wings and the Colorado Avalanche. Unbelievable.
Good stuff.
And it goes back to what started the whole thing was the Claude Lemieux smashing Chris Draper into the boards, and then it just escalated, and it's been one of those unbelievable rivalries ever since. Like the best in sports. Like you're talking Yankees, Red Sox, you're talking, right? All of the great rivalries in sports. This is so intense. And I was watching.
A lot of people don't know about that. And you know what? I knew these teams hated each other, and I knew there was history, but to be honest, I didn't know until the depth of this.
Yeah,
it's
fantastic. It got so intense, that it was the Patrick Waugh and Chris Osgood dropping the gloves, goalies, and these guys weren't just they weren't dancing.
This is the best hockey goalie fight of all time.
Clearly,
No
the
doubt.
best of all time.
Correct.
But it's a great documentary. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's E60. And Steve, you and I we give kudos to stuff like Real Sports and ESPN's 30 for 30, those kind of things. This is worth watching.
Yeah. Everyone is. I haven't watched one. I'm like, beat. Like, they're all well done, well researched.
They are.
It's great.
They are. Here's a random point of interest that has no significance at all. The big boxing match coming up with Adrian Peterson versus Le'Veon Bell.
Yeah.
Who do you like?
I'm not even commenting on it.
No. People are going to pay to see this. I mean, people are actually going to pay to see this.
Have fun.
I thought it was so irrelevant that it was worth mentioning.
Right. What's that on Comedy Central?
Yeah. And I wanted to also bring something up. It was from the NFL, and it's kind of fun because we know these guys. We know the McCourty brothers. They're St. Joe's guys, and we're St. Joe's guys. And it was kind of funny because Jason, they asked him, he was on some podcast or something to name the top 10 defensive backs in the league, and he left his brother off the list. It was pretty funny. So there's back and forth, and these are great, classy kids. I mean, I've met them several times. They're awesome, but I thought that was kind of funny because they got this rivalry. And when you want to talk about dead ringer twins, these guys, you got to tell them apart by the shoes, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
And Devin McCourty, I mean, he's had such a pretty damn good career. He's possible Hall of Fame consideration.
I think Devin McCourty's going to.
Yeah, I hope so. That would be the first St. Joe's guy to make the Hall of Fame, but he's certainly,
He's trending.
he's trending.
I think he's already there.
He should be, yeah. And wanted to also bring this up because we're homers, we're St. Joe's guys, but we appreciate athleticism, and especially on an amateur level. Jimmy Mullen from St. Joe's, he's a two-time defending state champ in wrestling, heavyweight division, which is impossible to happen. And Steve, you brought up the name in Sarah before. I would think he was one of the guys. And Jimmy Mullen's going to be a senior next year, so he's going for 3 state championships in a heavyweight division. It's only happened 2 other times in New Jersey history.
Yeah.
What an athlete this kid is.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Right.
Don't want to spill a beer on him in a bar. I can tell you that.
No, do not.
Anyway, so the other thing I just wanted to touch on, and I don't want to dwell on, is this LIV golf, right? The Live Golf. The only thing that I think it's going to impact, and these guys are jumping ship, right? We broke our heart, Koepka going over with Johnson, and all the B guys. I don't blame the B guys, for going over, but I think it's going to affect the Ryder Cup substantially. I mean, I think there's a lot of young talent on the U.S. side that they could get through this, right? Zach Johnson's the captain this year, for next year. You got guys like Schauffele and Scheffler, so you got a formidable, but you're not going to have those faces. You're not going to have the Johnsons. You're not going to have the DeChambeaus. You're not going to have those guys because they took the money. And it was on this morning. I saw the highlights, and I'm going, I don't even want to watch this. It's really, for some reason, I just can't. I'm not going to warm to it. I'm not going to watch it, even when Fox or somebody else picks them up, or Amazon Prime is the broadcasting partner for Live Golf. No interest.
And also, speaking of this, Fred Couples was quoted this week.
Oh,
and his point was the disdain he now has for Phil Mickelson, right? They were friends. They were got along just fine for decades. But I pat Fred Couples on the back for
Freddie's one of my all-time favorites.
For calling these guys out.
Great. That's great. I mean, the guys like him and Mickelson and Nicholas, these are the guys that say, I don't understand this, and it's not the PGA Tour, so live with it.
Yep. But
the money was the money, right? So also, let's go into, there was one interesting thing, because it was Mark Appel. He was the #1 draft choice in Major League Baseball 9 years ago.
Out of Stanford.
Right, and just made his Major League debut 9 years later.
Well,
that's perseverance, isn't it?
Well, that's baseball. That's a perfect example of the love of the game.
Yep.
And for this guy to toil in the minor leagues, bus rides, and
So 9
You know,
years.
and we talked about the minor leagues last year on the show about living conditions and things like that.
Yep.
I couldn't be happier for a guy like that
Me too.
to make the show finally, and I wish the guy nothing but success.
I do. I hope he has a lot of success
I
in
do too.
baseball. I mean, he's probably 30 by now, right?
So
Something
what?
like that.
You
But
know, it's still a kid's game.
now you're right. Perseverance personified with this kid. I'm very happy to see that.
Me too.
So Steve, let's
I just want to bring up one
Go ahead.
random thing. The news of USC and UCLA.
Yeah.
Bolting the Pac-12 to join the Big Ten, which should be called the Big, 18 or whatever it is. But I'm telling you right now, this is trending. It's going to be 2 super conferences. That's the next couple years that probably will consist of 30 teams, 25 teams, something along those lines. The top 50 D1 football programs.
So you're thinking the Big Ten, as we know it, is going away, right? The Pac-12, as we know,
I think
is going away.
I think like the Big Ten and the ACC would like probably combine, kind of like the SEC and Southwest and all that, right? So that's what I see, or better yet, like a North versus South type of environment.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
the Florida, Alabama's, Georgia's, Texas's, all that stuff, and then you have California, and you have Ohio, Michigan, you have Pennsylvania, that type of thing. That's how I see this playing out.
Mhm.
And then what the playoff format is now will obviously become more expansive. To how many teams, I don't know.
Right.
But college football landscape is just it's going to happen.
And it's kind of funny
different.
because of the way we grew up, right? The Big Ten meant something, right? It was always the Rose Bowl game, and it just changes the landscape of college football, right? I mean, the best teams are still going to contend for national championship, but the old traditional, when you and I were growing up, that's gone by the wayside. It seems,
And again, change is inevitable.
I guess,
And
yeah.
again, with the name, likeness, image thing, but college football as we know it, it's done.
Yeah.
It's
But you're right, that it was big news. I'm a little surprised that they can just up and move out of their conference. But
listen, if Texas and Oklahoma can,
I guess, yeah.
on a Monday say, we want to go to the SEC by Thursday.
Right.
We're going to the SEC.
You're right. You're right. Yeah, no, that's big news, actually. It's from a college football perspective, it's going to be great to see Ohio State play, UCLA or USC, which they don't really play that hardly ever. But that's opens it up for some future rivalries that are going to take place.
When are the Trojans coming to Piscataway?
Yeah, right.
Right.
How that'd be nice to see, actually.
Absolutely.
Believe it or not.
Right.
So, Steve, let's move on to our notable passings. And there was one notable for sure in the NFL. And I want to say NFL because I view that as one, but he was a up-and-coming young player in the AFL, Marlon Briscoe. And you and I remember him from the Sunoco, the book stamp book. But he was the first black quarterback in the AFL for the Denver Broncos. And then you and I were talking about who was the first in the NFL, and you got the names that I came up with. I said John Gilliam had to be one of them.
James Harris is right
Yeah,
there.
James Harris for the Rams. But Marlon Briscoe, not only was he a quarterback, and he ultimately
Joe Gilliam, not John.
Oh, Joe, that's right. John was the wide receiver for the Vikings.
Yes, his helmet came off at the beginning. Blasted
Ooh.
in the Super Bowl.
One of the all-time hits of all time. But Marlon Briscoe became a pretty damn good wide receiver in his own right. And,
Absolutely.
played for the Bills, and he was actually a member of the 72 undefeated Dolphins team.
Right. And Broncos too.
Yeah. So he was a notable player.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen. Well, when you think Marlon Briscoe, you think of a professional football player who's well liked by his peers. And, and again, at that era, too, we talk about Jackie Robinson, what he was subjected to.
Yep.
Marlon Briscoe was subjected to the same racism and things like that because why? He was one of the first of
Yeah. Yeah.
So rest in peace, Marlon Briscoe.
Yeah, notable for sure. And one other, and this is more, I don't know where this, and this isn't because we're fans of this guy, but it was kind of notable because it's kind of pop culture, if you will. Sonny Barger, one of the original founders, allegedly founders of the Hells Angels, right? And so I bring this up because you're the Rolling Stones guy, and we know the famous Altamont issue.
Hey man, if that cat doesn't cool it, man,
we're not gonna
we're
play,
not gonna play, man.
Sonny Barger, 83. And I think I kind of read a little bit about it. I mean, this guy was certainly not a role model, but from a culture perspective, he was kind of a folk figure.
The guy. Yeah, let's give the guy credit for what he's known for.
Yeah, and he did time. He's no choir boy. That's for damn sure.
Exactly.
But the Hells Angels, like him, love him, dislike him. Either way, it's part of society in this country.
You have friends. I have friends. Everybody has friends that are just motorcycle enthusiasts.
Right.
Doesn't mean you have to, be a Hell's Angel and
run roughshod over everybody.
Right. Do the Bronx Tale and barrel into the Bronx on your bikes,
right.
And then make a ruckus in a bar, which is one of my favorite scenes of all time. When Chaz says, "Well, now you can't leave."
But that's I thought it was notable from just a kind of a culture perspective.
No question.
So listen, just give us a quick update on your son's performance last week at your lacrosse tournament.
Yeah, so my son plays for Brotherhood Lacrosse out of Northern Highlands, Allendale. It's coached by Kyle Ojakian, who's the head coach of Northern Highlands. And they went down to Trenton, and they went 4-1. Sean had 5 goals, so we had 3 games on Saturday. We had 2 on Sunday.
Excellent.
Hotter than hell. So, any fellow lacrosse dads or mothers out there, the thing about lacrosse in the summer is there ain't nowhere to hide.
Yeah.
I mean, it's open parks and so on and so forth. But
good for him.
Yeah,
good for him.
So he's doing very well, and
excellent.
He's got a few more tournaments, so we'll have to.
Yeah, he's really come a long way from. I mean, you're talking less than a year. He's come, and I'm very proud of him as well. So.
Exactly, thrilled for his success.
So listen, folks, thanks for joining us again, and we look forward to speaking with you next week. And like Steve said before, if you got comments, send this to him at sportswithmonoandmono@gmail.com. And listen, we're starting to gain some more followers. Things are really picking up, getting a lot of good feedback from our loyal listeners. And tell a friend, and we just love doing the show. And Rob, thanks behind the curtain. Thanks for filling in last week.
Thank you, Rob, as always.
And we'll catch up to you folks next week.
And no Nets bashing.
Nets bashing will never stop here. See you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.